How do I manage to stay sober if I'm going back to the same town I used to be in? Well, I think the bottom line answer for me is, first let's do this exercise. Who's the newest person here? People in here that are new, right? Our goal is to make you feel welcome.
Yep.
Have we done that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, here's what you need to know. We're glad you're here. Okay? Super glad you're here. In fact, we're so glad you're here, we don't even care if you're glad you're here. That's how happy we're glad you're here. In fact, if you're really happy to be here, we probably can't help you until you quit taking what's making you so happy to be here. But anyway, okay, bottom line, we're glad you're here. Well, here's what you need to know. You must leave, okay? You cannot stay here. You got to go. It's out there right now, ain't it? Okay. Those of y'all who went, yes, it's out there right now, hear this. It is not out there. Okay? You know where it is? That's correct. We have a saying, please don't leave with the same mind you came with. Not wanting to do it anymore. I shouldn't do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. All that, those cards can't be played with the mind I came with, okay? And know this too also, that if you use again or drink again after being here, it is not going to come at you from the outside anyway. Do you know whose idea it'll be?
No.
That is correct. Know for a fact that if you're out there and you're doing the deal and it comes up to you, you will not do this number. No thanks. I have a program of recovery. Get away from me. I mean, that's not how it's going to happen anyway. I promise you, you will not get put in a headlock, poured down your throat. You don't need to watch out for them. You know who you need to watch out for? Okay, so listen to this statement. Because if I have to stay away from alcohol and the places that I used to use, well, if I had to stay away from the places I used to use, I'd be peeing in the backyard the rest of my life. Okay? Now, here's what it says here about staying away from, thinking that the problem is outside of us. It's misunderstanding of the illness, ignorance of the illness. Okay? Here's what it says. We meet these conditions every day. I go to the grocery store. Look who I've been hanging out with the last 20 years. Okay? Okay? So, it ain't them, okay? We hang out with people all the time, go where drugs is, it's still everywhere, right? Okay. We meet these conditions every day. An alcoholic who cannot meet them still has an alcoholic mind. That's why we got to get a new one. Why does he still have an alcoholic mind? Because there's something the matter with his spiritual status. There it is right there. Okay? How do I get a new mind? I have a spiritual experience. That's how I have one. I had a spiritual experience, gave me a new mind. They call it reborn, new mind, psychic change, new way of living. Lots of cool words for it in here. But the bottom line is, I have a new mind now that's totally incapable of obsessing on dope. It's awesome, by the way. But anyway,
What page?
I'm on page 101. Hell, this is Sobriety 101. Okay? His only chance for sobriety, if it's we need to keep on guard and exercise our willpower, which is a program a lot of people use, by the way. His only chance for sobriety would be someplace like the Greenland ice cap. And even there, an Eskimo might turn up with a bottle of scotch and ruin everything. Ask any woman or man who has sent her wife to the distant places on the theory he could escape his alcohol problem. In our belief, any scheme of combating alcoholism which proposes to shield us from temptation is doomed to failure. If these thoughts occur, see, doomed to failure. If the alcoholic, Tracy, somebody's at the door. if the alcoholic tries to shield himself, he may succeed for a time, but usually winds up with a bigger explosion than ever. We have tried these methods. These attempts to do the impossible have always failed. Now, what Chelsea was sharing is the next paragraph. So our rule is to not avoid places where there is drinking. How would you do that anyway? I don't think you can go to a restaurant, can you? And besides that, here's what you need to know. I drank right before I came into this group. Okay? It was coffee. Okay?
I know.
I drank quite a bit today. Okay? I really did. So, just let you know that. Okay? Now, if we have a legitimate reason for being there, skip back just a little bit. Guys at House 3 have used this excuse a lot of times. Of course, they're all in hospitals and jails right now, but assuming we're spiritually fit, we can do all sorts of things alcoholics are not supposed to do. They go, you know, they spend their passes at the titty bar. And they go, well, it says we can go anywhere we want to if we're spiritually fit. and the answer to that, of course, is here's a test on how you know if you're truly spiritually fit when it comes to that. You wouldn't want to go. How do I say sorry if I'm going back to the same town I used in? I promise you this, it wasn't the town. Okay? Believe it or not, it wasn't the town. But I know the feeling. I remember having one foot in the grave, and I thought this. It's this town that's messing me up. I need to get out of here. You know what I mean? And so I got a job in Austin. I'm pulling out of my parents' driveway in my Toyota Celica liftback with my toolbox in it. And you can hear literally the Beverly Hillbillies theme song. So I'm pulling out like dun, 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 dun. And my mom, dad, two sisters are waving to me. And I'm going to start life anew in Austin because it's damn towns. All right? And I hadn't met you yet. You ain't looking for me. And apparently. And, so because, now listen to this thought life. Only you people will be able to help me with this. I promise you. Because I'm going to quit and not use anymore, what do we need to do?
Stop by and get one last time.
That's correct. Now, hold on a minute now. You got to follow me with this thought life. Because I'm going to quit, I need to use. Okay? Now you need to know, you folks are the only ones that know what I'm just said. Okay? Because that sounds insane. All right? The reason why it sounds insane is because it is. Okay? Now, that's why we come to believe that there's a power granted us that can restore us to sanity. The only people that need restored to sanity are those that are insane. Okay, so, because I'm going to quit, and I'm trying to get my life in order, I'm going to stop by the dope house. And I stop there, I get a 60, because, you know, that's all I need, I'm quitting. And I go down the road, I pull over, I do a shot, I pull over, I do a shot. Then the least favorite thing about Coke happened to me. I ran out. Okay, so then I don't know what's wrong with me yet, but I do know that I need some more. And I turn around. My sister gave me a credit card to help me start life anew. And y'all know the story. There should be like Jaws music right now. Dun, 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 dun. So I do the old buy shit, turn it in, and I do that shit for about all weekend long. Anyway, what happens is, and this is the part I hated, and I've done it so many times, hate this part. About 3 days later, I pull back in front of my mom's house, okay? And I'm walking to the front door. man, I can find everything that's on the ground from my car to that front door too. And I walk in and this is what they said. I don't blame them. They're going to go, what happened? Okay? Damn, I hated that question. And I'm going to say something like, I don't know. Now, you got to admit, if on their side of the thing, when we say I don't know, I bet they think things like this. How long have you been doing it? Oh, I don't know, a couple decades. And you don't know why? I bet they just is as baffled as we are. But I don't. I'll give you a bunch of reasons why, but none of them will be because I have an obsession of the mind coupled with an allergy of the body due to a spiritual tapeworm. Okay? God, I hated that. Okay, here's why I couldn't get away from my alcoholism. Because it's inside me. Okay? So, the question isn't what town are you going back to? The question is who's going back to that town. Correct? Okay? And I promise you this, when I got here, it wasn't who came back to Pasadena when I got out. It was whose came back to Pasadena when I got out of treatment. You see, I'm not sober because of who I am. I'm sober because of whose I am, if you know what I mean. Okay? There's a power that I was able to access while I was in the recovery center that had been there all along. It'd been there since I was born, but check this out. The power that I found by finding what was blocking it and started expressing itself, that power, listen to this, has been here since the beginning of time. Wow. So, 24 years later, going from Pasadena to a recovery center in North Houston, totally obsessed with shooting coke and eating pills, seemed like since I was, I don't know, 17 or something. That happened to me, that power that pulls chronic alcoholics and addicts back from the gates of death has been expressing itself in me for over 2 decades now. And I've been in Pasadena, I've been in North Houston, I've been in dope houses talking to you, I've been in recovery centers here, I've been hanging with dope fiends all along ever since. Something happened to me with a capital S. Most common word I've ever heard used for God in over 2 decades around here. You all tell this horrific story, and you don't even know you're calling him God. You don't even know it's God. You go, man, I was here, and then something happened. I go, oh yeah, something happened, didn't it? It's so awesome how he will start. My definition of God is this, my favorite one anyway, a force that drives me to that which is good for me, even against my own will. Even against my own will. And then you offered me a program that enabled me to make it my will too. And boy, you get on that train, baby, and you're going to be rocketed into a 4th dimension of existence of which you have never even dreamed. Okay? So, anyway, I'm on, baby.
You're cooked.
Can you feel it?
Yeah, of course. I love you. Okay. Yeah, well, I agree with everything he said. However, I had my own experience was that I went in 6 treatment centers, and the challenge I had was that I got out of that first treatment center and the second one and the And I went back to the sick and twisted relationships that I'd had when I came in here. Chuck, you talk a lot about relationships. Yes, we all live in relationships. Okay? And what we're trying, the improvement in my spiritual life has been an improvement in my relationships, but I always lived in relationships. When I was frightened and angry, dope fiend, crazy man, I hung around with frightened, angry, dope fiend, crazy people. And of course, my family relationships were completely distorted and twisted. And so there was numerous things going on that when I got sober for a few days or a few weeks, just terrified me, infuriated me, made me crazy. And this, I think, is the power of the fellowship. I mean, the short answer to your question is the way you stay sober is you don't put any whiskey in your mouth. You don't shoot any dope. That's how you do it. Okay? However, because I'm crazy and I can't tell the difference from the true from the false, and so now I'm newly sober, I'm an open bleeding wound, and I've gotten a little bit of basic training in a 28-day spin dry treatment center, and now I'm right back where I was before I walked in here, and it's real easy to forget. To me, this early part of this journey is a lot of amnesia in it. It's real easy to forget. It's real easy. This is why we talk about resentments so much. Because when those resentments would pop back up, they made me insanely thirsty. Because that's how I dealt with resentments. I drank and I drugged because I couldn't stand it. So while I'm getting through the steps and healing the important relationships and severing the ones that are sick and twisted and making new relationships with sober people, early on it's difficult. That's why we recommend that you find meetings and you make some sober friends and you start walking this journey with some other sober people. Now, you know, if I don't know who wrote the question, but it sounds like you may be going a ways away. I mean, if you're leaving this part of Houston, well, you're going to have to. You'd be well advised to find meetings in your area and start making some connections with them. If you're going to stick around here, well, there's meetings all over the place, and we will. You know, I'm sure that you're introducing them to some of them. And so we work on this. This I didn't have one of these blinding flash, burning bush kind of experiences, and so I had a good forgetter, and I could fall into the kind of craziness that you just described so eloquently. And in those moments of fearful insanity, it was pretty easy to forget that I ought to call my sponsor instead of my dope dealer, that I ought to go to a meeting instead of the bar. I could kind of forget that. And then the next thing you know, I would choose. I have to take responsibility for these things today, because every drink I took, every first drink I took, I chose to take. After that, the drink was taking the next drink. But when I've been sober for a few days or a few weeks and started using or drinking again, that was a choice I made because in some crazy, sick, and twisted way, it seemed like the right thing to do. It seemed like a good idea at the time. And it was all caught up in all kinds of craziness like, well, I'll only have 2. Or one of my really crazy ones was, I'll quit at midnight. Because I was a coke hound too. So any of you guys want to quit at midnight, you make that decision? Yeah, I'm going to quit at midnight, I'll make it to work. I didn't specify what day I was going to make it to work. and because what was happening was that the book says insanity returns and then we use. So I hadn't had the spiritual experience. I fought to these steps. I mean, you know, for those of us who've actually had a spiritual experience and live a life guided by love rather than the life I used to live driven by fear, it all sounds so simple. But when I was in it, it seemed very complicated. These emotional firestorms would get on me, and those old habits would kick right back in, and then suddenly I'm in the, oh my God, I'm going to drink, I don't want to drink, I shouldn't drink, well, screw it, one won't hurt, and then the whole conversation is on, and I would almost always give in. And the big book even talks about it in the doctor's opinion, about we fall back into the relapse, and we have terrible remorseful, and we emerge remorseful and decide we're not going to do it again. Well, I did that quite a few times. And the people that I was meeting slowly around the fellowship kept saying, come join us, be with us. My grandmother used to say, you're going to become like the people you choose to hang around with. So perhaps you shouldn't hang around with those people. Now, I've been in dope houses and bars and talking to people, and I dragged a guy out of a crack house, and I've done all of these things now. But back then, when I was brand new at this, that was just not a good idea for me. I needed to go to a lot of meetings. I needed, and not just, I needed to work the steps and do all the rest of it, but I really did need to hang around with some other people who were on the same path I was. And over time, I began to think like they think and act like they act. So there's a power in the fellowship. So, if I have a condition that I can't tell the true from the false, as Dr. Silkworth says, and you're introducing me to a program of rigorous honesty, but I wouldn't know the truth if it ran me over in a parking lot, it's a little difficult for me to know whether or not I have a fit spiritual condition, or whether or not what I actually have here is just a lame excuse to fall back into those same old patterns that I used to live in. Now, as far as our families, well, they're our families, and we're going to have to make reconciliation with them. But I had a lot of loser friends that we just needed, the paths needed to separate. And I needed some sober friends. So that's my only, sounds like I'm contradicting you, but I'm really not. I just think it's part of the process.
Right. It's, this is what came out of my mouth this morning in morning meditation. We're talking about it takes a village to raise a kid. Have y'all heard that? It takes a village to keep raising me, too. I mean, it takes a village to raise a kid, but I think it takes a village to keep us going, too.
By the way, every true spiritual tradition on the planet, the spiritually evolved people advise strongly that all of their followers hang around with other people who have chosen the spiritual path. Hang around with us. Okay.
Now, the gift y'all have been given here, of course, is that unlike a majority of a lot of people in AA, they will just get stuck on the meeting makers make it trail. And you need to know you really need to have more going for you than a sponsor or the fellowship of, it's in the triangle. Unity, recovery, service. Get in all three parts of that, or you promise you it's not going to work. Because I have an obsession of mind, allergy, body, and spirituality. I need to treat all parts of it. If I leave one part out, I will probably fall. It's as simple as this. You're going to make an upside down strawberry cake. I don't know how to make one, but I promise you this. If you follow the directions perfectly, and you stick it in there, it'll come out as an upside down strawberry cake. If you go, I'm just going to do it my way, I'm going to leave a couple of them out, you really don't have to do this direction. You probably won't end up with one. But the main part of that story is this. Once you get the upside down strawberry shortcake out of the oven and you follow the directions perfectly, then what do you get to do with it? No, you give it away, you selfish people. That's a trick question, really. And the other thing you need to know here too is that if something doesn't happen to you miraculously while you're in here, something miraculously will happen to you when you leave here. How do you practice love and tolerance in your daily life? That's a terrible question.
Well, there's the word practice.
That's the one I focused on. That is the one that jumped out on that page. You would think love and tolerance would be the ones that got big. It was the practice that got big. Now, trust me. That is what this whole thing's about. Practice, practice. Damn, did you see that shot? I'm practicing golf now. Went way the hell over there in the woods. Well, don't quit just because one went over there in the woods, And just keep, oh crap, I hate them. Tolerance for that bitch. All that stuff. And then later, when you're inventorying, oh shit, I forgot that when I hate you, it's like me taking poison, waiting for you to die. Oh, hold on a minute here. God, remove that from me. Let me discuss with somebody, get back on the path here. It's a practice. It really, really is. I don't walk around with love, tolerance, butterflies blowing out my ass 24/7. Okay.
When it happens, it's amazing to watch.
I mean, I do love it when that happens. I love it, but it's not real. Okay. So practice. Does that make sense? Practice. Okay. Is it important to have structured prayers, or is all day a prayer? That is the question I'm saving for my video. That's right on the video that I brought y'all today. How do I obtain peace and serenity? How do I stay clean when I leave? We kind of covered that, didn't we? Didn't we? Okay. We got that one, right? I'm glad it said, how do I obtain it? Not, I guess, maintain, keep it. Just know you can't keep it. Okay? It's a dance. I tell you what, I don't know if anybody took harder knocks in that one than me. Because I did have the vital, burning bush spiritual experience, and God dang it, it almost killed me, to be honest with you. It fooled me. It was so amazing and miraculous and all that, that I thought sobriety equals no problems. Because I didn't have any for about 9 months. I mean, hello. It was just phenomenal, okay? And then I had a problem. And I went, shit, there's something wrong with my spiritual program here. And I was worried about it, and still had it. And I just thought that, well, here's what happened to me. I came in as a human being needing a spiritual experience. I had one. It took me 9 months to wake up to this fact. I am not a human being that needs to have a spiritual experience. I am a spiritual being that needs to learn how to have a human experience. That's the hard one. Okay, the other one's pretty, I mean, follow some directions and you'll have one. I thought, I don't know where I got this from, and I had it before I even met you. I got the insane idea that I'm supposed to feel good all the time. And if I didn't, there was something wrong with me. I don't know why that is, but it happened, and what reinforced that was the first time I used. Okay? When I used, it didn't make me feel good. It made me feel good. You know what I mean? So I don't really care about feeling good that often. I like to feel good. And then I don't get depressed. I get depressed. And I'm a little, But what I've learned, hard knocks school, is the tide comes in sometimes and the tide goes out. It's supposed to do that. It's the dance, okay? It's necessary. Do you know if the tide doesn't go out, I think it would destroy the world, to be honest with you. And the tide comes in to dance with the moon, the stars, the spirit, God, all that. It is so necessary that the tide comes in, the tide goes out. Sometimes the tide is in. I love it when the tide's in, okay? But sometimes the tide goes out, as it should. My problem is when the tide goes out, I go, what did I do to make the tide go out? I must have done something wrong. Da, 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 da. And then you ask me how I'm doing, and I'll lie. Fine. You okay? Yes. Now and on top of that, I got some dishonesty now and all that crap. But then when the tide comes in, the problem I have with that is okay, I got the formula now. I know how to make the tide come in. And it's just not true. I think one of the most meaningful things that I need to say over and over again so I can hear it is that feelings aren't good, bad, right, or wrong. They just are. And I judge them all the time. Anyway, don't know if that was helpful.
Well, I think that what you were beginning to touch on. I mean, the idea that I could feel good all the time was at the heart of my alcoholism and my drinking. I drank to maintain permabuzz. I mean, that was it. I liked the way it made me feel, and I wanted to feel that all the time. And so over time, I gave up everything else in my life so I could try to capture that feeling, which, as we all know, became harder and harder to do and required more and more drugs and booze in more and more strange quantities, and until it completely destroyed me. But that was it was a crazy idea that somehow I could slide through life and manage things well enough and just keep the party going full tilt boogie the rest of my life. And it won't happen. It doesn't happen. And so what happens is in the program, as I grow up spiritually, I have problems. I've had some family members die in my sobriety. I've had major surgery. I've had some accidents, car wrecks. Stuff happens. Life is what happens while we're making other plans. What I have learned is a certain emotional balance. Dr. Bob had this thing on his desk. It was his definition of humility, and he said it's to have the perpetually untroubled heart. It's to become increasingly indifferent to victory or defeat, praise or blame, good days or bad days. There is a place at the center of being where it just is what it is and it's okay. And then the stuff that goes on around doesn't reach me as much as it used to. I don't fly off the handle. And that's why I like the bicycle riding. Imagine riding a sport bike, mountain bike, through rough terrain. A person who knows how to do that can maintain the balance, even though the bike is doing this. There's a balance point that can be found. Meditation is a big piece of my practice in that way. One Chinese mystic named Zhuangzi, who lived about 2,500 years ago, he said, I sit at the center of the merry-go-round and I watch yes and no chase themselves around the outside. In other words, I don't have to get involved in all these soap operas going on around me, and I become more and more unaffected by other people's fear and anger or other people's elation. I can actually be present in the experience and perhaps even be of some help. So it's not that I don't feel these things, it's that they somehow don't move me like they used to. They don't drive me like they used to. And so to me, that's the essence of spiritual balance. And the last thing I'll say is it took me a long time to realize it. When I started on the spiritual path, I thought, man, I got to get to heaven, right? We all want to leave this shitstorm behind and go to heaven, so we're going to believe in Jesus or Buddha or whatever. But if you look at Jesus' great prayer, what we're asking God to do is not take me up to heaven. We're asking God to bring heaven down to earth, and I'm supposed to be the agency through which the spirit of love and understanding can flow and help other people. It's not about me leaving earth, it's about me being a place where God can come down to the earth and be present for other people. And we call that love. Love, compassion, goodwill. These are the fruits of the Spirit, as St. Paul wrote about. That's the kind of stuff that begins to happen as I become more and more aware of the presence of God. Wherever I am, God is. Wherever God is, I am. We cannot be separated. As that becomes more and more of a reality for me, then I don't ride the roller coaster as much. And I can be fully present in the moment as the dance goes on. In other words, it's like it took me a lot of years, but I've learned the rhythm of the dance now. And now it's kind of fun. I can let it carry me. Sometimes it hurts, sometimes it doesn't. It's okay. This is heavy stuff, man. It's good. There's so much more here than losing the obsession to drink and drug. There are many other promises here. It's an amazing program, an amazing God.
Amazing. Where lowering my expectations help me be more accepting of my fellows. That's a good one.
Yes.
Yes. They say an expectation is a premeditated resentment. Okay, in early sobriety, we used to have this little thing called, Daryl would always say, don't loan anybody any money. If you want to give them money, give it to them. It's a gift. Do not loan money. If you get it, if they pay you back, it's a wonderful blessing. But only give it as a gift. Because if you loan money, that's called a premeditated resentment, okay? And especially when it's attached to something we think so important, like money. There's a story about the amends process where Bob B. borrowed some money from a friend of his, and like $2,000, and he said he'd pay it back in 3 months. So 3 months later, or it was about a week before 3 months later, started coming up. And he started thinking, he goes, you know, they had the same home group, okay? About a week before the 3 months was up, he said, you know what, I need to expand my horizons. I've been making the same meeting too often. I need to like branch out a little bit, okay? So he started thinking about that. And then it came about 2 days before the time was to pay him back. He started thinking, you know, anybody that could loan you that much money probably isn't real worried about getting it back, okay? And then a day before he had to start paying it back, he started thinking, you know what? I remember that time he was rude to that one person. And then the day that he had to pay him back, he started thinking, you know what? That guy's an asshole. And what he's trying to do is assassinating in his mind so you don't have to pay him back. And it's just amazing how all that crap works. But anyway, you got to watch for that kind of stuff. How do I keep hope and faith when someone else on the outside talks stupid to me? You know what? That's really sad because we do. I've done it, and I didn't even know I was doing it. And the person I really did it to and didn't even know I was doing it to was myself, you know. I go, man, I'm so stupid. Or, you know, da-da-da-da-da-da. But how do I keep hope and faith when someone else on the outside talks stupid to me? I think, you know, that one principle of our troubles of our own making is so powerful. And of course, we also need help and stuff with other people. But I think that one principle sort of kind of covers that, you know. Until I started getting well, I was surrounded by assholes. You know, the cops were assholes. They were always picking on me. You know, probation officers, man, I mean assholes, sending me to jail and prison, them low-life people. And there was just a lot of assholes out there. You know what I mean? And then something amazing happened when I started to get well, you know? But now there are people out there that are going to, well, let me just say this. You may not know this, but in this room, not everybody wants to do this, okay? In AA, not everybody wants to be sober and free, okay? They just don't. Something else you need to know is not everybody wants you to be clean and sober either, okay? There's some people that will prefer you being sick, okay? It's called control. It's also called misery loves company, okay? So I don't know exactly what the situation is on that. I just hope that you can have enough. I didn't really have enough respect for myself in the beginning, but by God's grace, I had enough respect for my spirit. I knew it was something very special that I guarded. I was very careful with it. And you couldn't talk that way to my spirit. Now, I know there's really no difference later than the two, but at first I still felt so rotten about me that if you talk shit to me, hell, I believed it, you know. So just once again, I encourage you to get around some people who are on your side, who have care and concern for you, who have love and affection for you, because not everybody does.
That's powerful stuff. I remember I came out of my first treatment center, 28 days and 1 hour. That's how long I stayed sober. The traffic was bad. I had to get back over to my dope dealer's house so we could sit there, my good friend Bill, and he and I could talk about all the things that I had learned about addiction. And so we're drinking 151 proof rum and smoking Thai stick and waiting for the coke dealer to show up, and we're both agreeing that it sure is good that neither one of us are addicts. So, you know, this is the, and I spent 4 years trying to hang around my old friends and not use. That was my next step. Well, okay, they're good friends of mine. Hang on a minute. And what happened was, I'll just say one thing I learned. My sobriety scared the hell out of them. At first they said, oh great, more for us. You know, we're glad you're here, Morgan. That's cool. You don't want to use, that's okay. Frankly, my sobriety threatened their denial. But anyway, the point is this. It took me a long time to understand. The big book says, well, actually it's in the 12 and 12, it talks about a medical study that was done to determine, to look at the common characteristics of alcoholics. Not that they couldn't control their drinking, that was obvious, but they wanted to look at the personality characteristics or psychological profiles of the people who were problem drinkers, addicts, alcoholics. And what they discovered was that we are hypersensitive, grandiose, and demanding, which means that I take everything personally. Whatever anybody says, it's always about me. And so I'm hypersensitive to seeming slights or insults. I'm very demanding and grandiose in the fact that I think I'm just, you know, some big shot. Basically what the psychologists came up with, and this I believe was a Harvard Medical School study, it was done in the late 40s and early 50s as AA got going. It really offended the members of our fellowship, because basically what they came to the conclusion was that alcoholics are acting like spoiled brats about 4 or 5 years old in grown-up bodies. And that's the emotional content. See? And so what begins to happen is, as I've grown spiritually, I become less and less offended by the silly things other people say. It's just what they say. I mean, I remember as a child, I was taught a great and profound spiritual truth, which I'm going to relay to you right now, and I would bet that most of you will disagree with it vehemently. And it goes like this: sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. People have said many stupid things to me, and I've said many stupid things to myself, and yet here I sit. Words are just auditory vibrations, but if I take them personally, I got to take a look at what that's about. And I'll give you an example. The woman that I know in the program, she likes to tell this story about, she says, you know, if you walk into this room and you call me an orange, you're an orange. You come into this room and call me a bitch, and I'll slap the shit out of you. And the reason is, I'm sure I'm not an orange. Think about it. See, that's why it hurts, because I harbor the illusion that I might be that. And now I want to defend myself against it. So once again, every time that I'm disturbed, there's something in me that has to be looked at. Why am I reacting to this way? This is the great power of self-examination, self-searching, leveling of pride, confession of shortcomings. Rather than lash back out and get angry, it might hurt. That's fine. I understand. I'm not arguing that our feelings get hurt. But what is that really telling us about ourselves? Forget about the other person. There are many foolish, jerky, asshole people out there that are angry and they say stupid things all the time. The question is, what does it say about me if I'm still taking this silliness personally? And I leave that to you and your God to figure out.
And know that you can't avoid them.
No.
See, I thought I was going to try to live where I didn't. I was going to try to find a way of life to where I would not get hurt, disappointment, my feelings hurt and all that. Well, there is a way to do that. It's called stay in a pay-by-the-hour motel room, you know, shooting coke. You can't play. So it matters. I mean, that's going to happen, but Brene Brown says, if you're not in the arena getting your butt kicked too, I'm not interested in your feedback. You can still come, because I know, I mean, I'll even have a seat for you, because I know you're going to be there anyway. But there are people, you know how easy it is to take shots sitting outside, you know, just talking about people and making fun of people and all that. But when you're in the game too, this recovery game that we're all doing here, we're all trying to do the deal together and all that stuff. And we'll still have our feelings hurt and all that. There's no way you can do this perfectly, okay? But I tell you, man, there's something special about we're so blessed to be in a place like this, because if you got it, you can spot it. I got it, I can spot it. And we all get our feelings hurt in some way. But when he said between you and your God, here's the neatest thing I can tell you about that, because I thought my sensitivity of those things was a defect. And I used to think embarrassment was a defect, because I got embarrassed so friggin' easy until a girl brought her kids up on the back of the Bay Area Club for me to, and introduced her to me. First one was a girl about that tall. She was all, hi. You know, I'm already freaked because I don't have kids. You know, I'm always going, oh, it's nice. Can't say that, so I'm already going, oh, hi. You know, the girl's got more social skills than I do, you know. She's only that tall. So I'm doing the little hi, you know, and I turn to the little boy and I go, hi, and he gets red and turns his face away, okay? And I did not think, what a defect. And what's wrong with him? You know what I mean? I thought, oh, he's sensitive. God. Okay, it was not a defect, okay? Something bigger than that is I was going to a meeting one day at the Bay Area Club, and we have the tables set up, okay? It's like, and there was 3 people sitting around the edge of the table, and they were talking. Well, I walk in, you know, and I go, is anybody sitting here? And he goes, yes. All right. Okay. I'm kind of stuck. I really don't know what to do. I go, you know, I get kind of red and stuff, and I go, I swallow real deeply, and I go, okay. I guess I should get up. Okay, so I get up, and I go, I take what? I need to get to that chair right there. This is what happened between this chair and that chair. They don't like me. Okay? The next step. I don't think anybody likes me. AA sucks.
Screw these jerks.
Okay, now sit down. Okay, the meeting starts, and I just saw this guy, by the way, about 2 weeks ago. Came by the office early, it was last week, I think. But anyway, this is years ago. The meeting starts, it's during Christmas time, okay? And I'm still over there, you know, taking those guys' inventories and stuff for hurting my feelings and all that. And the meeting starts, and here was the story. He was going over to his sister's house, parents I'm not sure, but anyway, he pulls up in front of his sister's or mom's house. And his mom, dad, parents, and cousins are all all outside the door, lined along the sidewalk leading to the door where he parked from. He was like, holy cow. Anyway, he's walking up the sidewalk, and this is what the family did. They said, the first one said, we have been mad at you so long, we forgot what we're mad at you about, and it's stopping today, and each person hugged him as he was going through the front door, all family members. Okay, here's what's happening to me now. I'm crying and frying with the presence of God, you know. Don't take away my sensitivity, please. I would have missed that, okay? A few minutes earlier, I wanted my sensitivity taken away. A few minutes later, I wanted to keep it more than anything in the world because it made my life worthwhile. I think in my hands, it's a defect. In God's hands, it's an asset. Okay? So I was able to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. I've been trying to do that ever since. I falter back and forth all the time. It's a human thing, but it is not I am not a defect, and neither is any of my emotions. Okay? None of them are. The other quick story was this girl, people, you're going to get some people that go, "You're an asshole," right? And I'll never forget the day, years ago, it doesn't happen all the time. One time this person said, "You're an asshole," and I found myself smiling. And here's why. I didn't believe her. It's amazing. I knew it wasn't true. Okay?
And God's been taking care of me all this time, and all of these phony defenses that I had raised up to try to, somehow get other people to love me or God to love me or whatever, all just proved to be silly. And so I find myself laughing quite a bit, and not the sarcastic laughter at other people. I just realize that somehow life is more of a comedy than it is a tragedy, and that the universe is very, very benevolent. I think the distinction I'm trying to make here is that I wasn't sensitive, I was touchy. The sensitivity that I think Chuck was talking about at the end is what I call empathy or compassion. It's an identification. It's the capacity to identify with, physically and emotionally identify with the Spirit of God working in other people. And so I'm a man who cries today. I cry tears of joy. Now, for many years, that was not okay. Men don't cry. Are you kidding me? Well, that's changed because I sense a connection to people that I didn't have before. I used to think that I was telepathic. I could look at you for 5 minutes and tell you that I knew exactly what you were thinking and why you did what you did, and I could tell you what you did wrong and why you did it. That's madness. See, I'm not telepathic at all. I haven't got a clue what anybody in this room is thinking right now. It's taken me almost 70 years to get a handle on what I'm thinking, to know what I'm thinking. But what I have become is empathetic. I identify with people's feelings, their emotions. And it comes with a deep desire not to hurt people because I know how that hurts. And this is called compassion. It's identification. It's shared suffering is what compassion actually means. I know how tough it is to get sober and stay sober. I try to be kind and compassionate and loving to all of the people who are trying to walk this path. These are newfound characteristics that I can only say are completely un-Morgan-like. It happened in spite of me, not because of Morgan the Magnificent's great intellect. So anyway, this is the essence of growing up. Spiritual growth and emotional growth are pretty much the same thing. So I'm not hypersensitive anymore. And I'm just another bozo on the bus. I'm just one of God's kids getting by. Hey man, life is still a mystery. But I have a way of relating to people now that somehow I'm not afraid to ask for help, not afraid to give help, not afraid to admit I don't know, not afraid to admit that I was wrong, and that I will try not to make that mistake again. This is called freedom. This is true freedom. It's not so much an external freedom like I'm 21 years old, I can do any damn thing I want that I can get away with. It's the freedom internally, freedom from 100 forms of fear, freedom from all that resentment, freedom from all that guilt and shame. Freedom to be, the freedom to be here at the intersection of here and now and not dragging all that crap around. That's what we're really promising in this program. That's what Happy, Joyous, and Free is really all about. Anyway, so you got it all
I do.
up here?
Why do we put, what is prayer?
I think we made prayer into very much a left brain, verbal thing. And I do think there's a place for that. But the very fact that the disciples had to ask Jesus for a verbal prayer could give you the clue that that isn't what they had previously been talking about or experienced. So I'm going to say this, that whatever you do in a state of communion, connection, love, use all of them equally, is prayer. Whatever you do outside of a state of union is non-prayer. So that's why, you know, action and contemplation can come together and really be one. When you're acting out of a state of conscious, loving union with what you're doing, with God, with the person who's across from you, I sincerely believe that's the deepest meaning of prayer. So prayer is primarily a stance. It's a way of being in the world that is a connected way, a way of love and communion, instead of a way of judgment, analysis, critique, you see. And once you recognize that, then you can, for example, when the gospel says Jesus prayed for 40 days in the desert, does that mean he said words? I don't think so. But that he walked around putting one foot in front of the other in conscious loving union with God, his Father, with that rock, with this sky, that's prayer. And that's why twice in the letters of the New Testament it says pray always. Now they can't really mean this verbal thing. They've got to be talking about a state of consciousness. And in many ways that's much harder to maintain. To really do even very secular things, so-called. Of course, then you find out there's nothing secular, because you can do everything in conscious, loving union with God. The dishes, driving to work, making love, whatever, you know, when you're doing it in union, it is a prayer. And I sincerely believe that. I'm not trying to be clever. I believe that.
So, did that help? Mm-hmm. Well, but do I say prayers? Do I have but the point I think that I heard was, we just prayed for an hour.
Yeah.
Right? Probably a very high formal way. And when you're sitting across, sharing with each other, not gossiping, that would be non-prayer. Gossiping about somebody. But when we're love and concern for one another, probably one of the most highest forms of prayer. The third step prayer has no amen after it. The seventh step prayer has an amen after it. That tells me the third and the seventh are all part of the same prayer. But notice what we do in between those. We're self-searching. We're looking at ourselves, trying to see truth. Then we share with one another our truths, and we reveal ourselves to each other in a very deep and meaningful way. And then we say the rest of the prayer, okay? That does have an amen. So, at night I say my prayers. I mean, I'm on my knees and I say my prayers, and I go to bed. I wake up and I say a prayer and all that. But the truth is, I think a better way to say it is when I wake up in the morning, a prayer begins in me. And I get to finish it on the edge of my bed by saying some words. And then I get to get up, and then I start sharing with people, and that's prayer also. It's just communication. If I even think about you or God in a loving way, it's prayer.
There's only two states of consciousness. One is fear and the other is love. And everything that happens to me is either an expression of love or a call for love. Every human interaction breaks down into those two. An expression of love or a call for love. When people are in fear and anger, that's a call for love. Counterattacking, screaming, yelling at them only makes it worse. Okay? So that's, to me, is the practice. Because God is love and he works through people. That's it. That's my theology.
Awesome. All right, well, we open this meeting with a prayer. May we live the rest of the day in a prayer and close sometime late tonight.